If you are watching this video now, then this is your time to travel. Are you stranded in the United States or any part of the world and you are looking for opportunities abroad? Then Canada is the right place for you. One thing I love about Canada is that they have different programs for each province. So no matter your situation, especially for skilled workers like teachers, nurses, doctors, IT specialists, and a lot, there is something for you. And the trick is that the opportunities are hidden in certain places, and that is why I'm here to show you. In this video, I want to achieve three things. One, I want to give you hope that no matter your travel ambition, if you will consider Canada, you will make a lot of progress, especially for those in the United States who are very stranded and they are thinking for opportunities abroad. Consider Canada because the pathways are straightforward, and once you meet the eligibility, you will be considered and you will be a permanent resident in no time. Secondly, in this video, I would like to teach you the opportunities in Canada. They have a lot of immigration programs, and these are no secrets. And I'll make sure I share my screen so that you will have a look at all these immigration. And then depending on your skill, trade, or profession, you will find one and follow the pathway to your permanent resident. The third thing I'll be showing in this video is to make sure that you meet the eligibility, because we cannot do anything without starting to check your eligibility. So once I have given you hope and I've shown you where the opportunities are, the third thing is I will make you check your own eligibility so that if you are not eligible, you don't even bother yourself to continue with us. But if you're eligible, then we can proceed in this process and I'll teach you along what you can do to become a permanent resident in Canada. In case you don't know, I was an international student in the United States. I became very stranded and frustrated, and I decided to look into Canada. And this is the best thing I've ever done. In 6 months, I became a permanent resident in Canada. Watch my previous video I did about F1 to PR in Canada, and you will learn a lot from that. Now, let's zoom into the practical aspect of what you need to do. On this page, we teach you what you really have to do, and it is not about long talks. And this is more like a classroom session, and I would advise you to pick up your computer or your phone and also follow through and put in your details as we go along, and that will be easy for you. Now let's go into it. So the first thing we are going to do is to open our web browser, and we go to cic.gc.ca and we enter. Yeah, it automatically changes to ircc.canada.ca. I always put in cic.gc, so yeah, just follow suit, guys. And then we do English since I'm English speaking. And then you scroll down and it's about immigration, so you go immigrate. Once you go to immigrate, it gives you the pathways to PR, and these are programs, different programs: express entry, provincial nominee, family. Guys, it's a lot. Personally, I use the express entry through the provincial nominee program, but the express entry is like the bigger umbrella, so we'll check the eligibility on the express entry first. And then let's look into the types: the Canadian Experience Class, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and Federal Skilled Trades Program. So for the purpose of this video, we are going to focus on the Federal Skilled Worker Program. First, it states who can apply for all these three programs. So let's look at what we have there. I told you we are focusing on the Skilled Worker Program, so we can click that and see the experiences or the eligibility for that one. So skilled workers, it says managers, people in jobs that usually need a university degree, college diploma, apprenticeship training. So guys, we are still on it. Just follow suit. Don't lose track of whatever we are doing, because if you start the processes, I know people who will just stand up, write IELTS, write everything, and they come back and they realize they are not even eligible. So this phase is very important. You have to understand whether you're eligible or not before doing the transcript evaluation and all that. Make sure you are eligible for the program. So the first thing here is the work experience, and they have some kind of codes that you have to be in it. I'm a registered nurse by profession, so I would like us to just go through it. In case you are different profession, you can use the same guideline, but let's look into it. So we can open this in a different tab. We can open this on a different tab to find the code for your job and make sure it qualifies, because they need someone who is in one of these tier 1, tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. So let's look at that. So these are the tiers. Tier 0 management, tier 1 occupation that require university degree. It gives examples of these occupation. So they want just 0, 1, 2, and 3. This is what will qualify for the express entry. So let's go down to search for the occupation. I use the registered nurse, so we can put in registered. Can you see that? It's tier 1, registered nurse, tier 1, 31301. That is the NOC code. Registered nurse and registered psychiatric nurses. So if your job is, they said, well, railway, those. So if your job is not in tier 0, 1, 2, 3, then this is not for you. You would also have other programs you will be eligible, but for the purpose of this video, we are focusing more on the skilled trade workers and more on nursing, because I'm a nurse and that is what I use. So I'll be a bit partial and more using and explain more, especially for the nurses. So you can write this code somewhere. You will need it. 31301. You will need this code because that is what is going to take you through. Another thing I want to mention is that personally, I came here as a new grad, and express entry usually requires you to get some number of hours. But the good thing was that I was a care assistant, care aide. Some places call it, every place call it differently. But in the US, we used to call it a care aide. So we can also use that. Let's check the NOC code for that. Especially for those who are nurses, but they don't have a lot of experience to use in the express entry. You can use other jobs which are related to help to the nursing or healthcare, where you have the number of hours they need. So let's look at another NOC code. They call it nurse aides, orderliness and patient service associate, which is 33102. So I use this as my principal, and that is where I got my minimum hours required for the express entry. If you have a special situation, send me an email or put it in the comment section, and I'll look into your situation, and then we'll see how we can figure it out. Now let's go back to, now that you have your code, whatever your job is, you can try to search it here and make sure your job code falls within the tier 0, 1, 2, 3, this tier category, and then we can come back here. So now that your job, now that we have confirmed that your job is in between these categories, we can check that off. And then said have the same NOC as the job you want to use for immigration. So for me, I use the nurse aide. Although I was a nurse, I didn't have a lot of experience as a nurse. I was only a new grad. So I used the nurse aide as my primary because I had 2 years experience in that. So I used that there. And it says your primary occupation may not be your most recent work experience. So I hope that makes sense. And then show that you perform. So in this NOC code, each of them have their own job description. If you are a nurse, we all know roles of a nurse. If you are a nurse aide, so it should align with this. We'll go into details on another video, but I know that the roles, whatever you are doing as a nurse aide or any health related job, will be very similar to what they have outlined here. But it's always good to check just to make sure that it is the same. So we can check that off as well. And then this job experience should have been obtained within the last 10 years in Canada or abroad. So it doesn't matter, even if you were not in the US, you were not in Canada, anywhere you are, as long as you accumulated those hours and you are experiencing that job, you can use that. So we can check that off. And you should be paid. It says you must have been paid wages or earned commission. Volunteer work or unpaid do not count. So it should be like a salary job where you were earning money for it. So we can check that off. And be at least 1 year of continuous work. Someone was asking me about those 1560 hours. If you still do not understand, you can put in the comments or email me and I can explain more. But it just says you should be 1 year working like a full. You should be working like 1 year full time. And here the full time is defined as 30 hours a week. So, and it should be continuous. It's not like you started a job, you work a month, you are off 3 months, come back. No, it should be a continuous job or a continuous role for 1 year to get the hours that can count. And it gives you a breakdown of all that. So it gives you other options if you were a student part-time, just to make sure the 1560 hours, how to calculate it. There is a way to check your score. Express entry do rounds of invitation. Once you get the score, you are picked up. So let's see the recent rounds and the scores that people were picked up. And based on that, we can calculate our score. So this is a round of an invitation. We'll open that in a new tab and let's look at what is there. So let's look at the latest round of invitation. What we will be using is the PMP. Earlier in the video, I told you that I used the PMP, and then once I was picked, I fell into, so it's like an umbrella. It's like an umbrella. The express entry is the very big umbrella. Then the smaller umbrella is the PMP. So I applied to the PMP, and then once I was picked, it fell into the express entry and I was selected. Okay, so I also use the PMP, so I'll be highlighting more on that because it's very easy to meet the eligibility. And mind you, we've already checked the express entry, the basic eligibility, and we want to go into the actual way of checking your score. But if you want to get it correct, you have to make sure you know, oh, what is the last cutoff point, so that you will have like a target score in mind. And the most recent one, they cut it off at 736. So if you put on your personal information, we should be targeting 736 so that there will be a chance that you could be picked up, right? And before that, on March 3rd, the cutoff was 667. February 17, 750. So we are looking at PMP. Most of the PMP, it's in the 700s. So we should be targeting above 700. Most of them, even this was 800. In my time, I had 900 and something, and I was paid. And because it was through the PMP. So the PMP is one of the easiest routes to get your express. It's the easiest route for the PR. And that was what I did. So I'll be going more into that. Now we are targeting above 700 to 800 if we really want to be picked in the draw. So let's go back and make a personalized score check. They've done a new changes to their system, but I don't think it will affect this process much. So let's put in our scores. So it says, what is your marital status? Because each of these questions they're asking gives you a certain score. And we're going to put in just random information. This is not any personalized, but if you have your computer with you, put in your information and let's go along. We want to have an idea of how to get an idea of the score so that you have a target, okay? So let's say you are married, because most of my viewers are above 35. It's just an assumption. And what is your, yeah. So let's say married. Is your spouse a citizen or no? Will your spouse come with you? Yes. As I feel, you can also put in your own information. How old are you? Maybe you are 30 years. What is your level of education? Maybe you have a bachelor's degree in nursing. Have you earned a Canadian degree or no? Because this is for those who schooled in Canada. So this is about Canada's official languages. So this is where the IELTS issue comes in. You need to submit a language test result. There are different types. There are a lot of different types, but I use IELTS. There are other ones on the website which you can also use. So it shouldn't be more than 2 years. So it expires after 2 years. So are your results less than? So we assume yes, because before you fill this form or before you be ready to submit, you would have all these. So the assumption is that everything is in place, okay? Which test did you take for your first official language? I told you IELTS. So these are the other type of tests which they also accept. But for the purpose of this video, we'll use the IELTS, yes. Enter your test score. So the better you do with this course, the higher it helps with your ranking system. So let's say speaking, you had 7, because if you are coming from the US, I assume you speak very good English. Listening, we should do 6 to 7. I'm just picking average numbers. Reading, you should do well, 7 to 7. Writing, we can do 6.5. Let's move on. Do you have another? Because this is for those with 2 languages. Some people speak French and they also have the test for that. But if you don't, you write not applicable. In the last 10 years, how many years of skilled work experience in Canada do you have? The assumption is most of my viewers here you don't have. So we do none or less than a year. And then this also does not, this is a general. It's not in Canada. So if you are watching me in the last 10 years, how many foreign skilled? So personally, I had worked a lot. So I'll say 3 years or more. Do you have a certificate of? So this certificate of qualification is for those in trade. So what we are doing, it's not a trade. So it will not apply to us. Now let's go on. Do you have a valid job offer supported by LMI? So for nurses, if you get a job, usually the recruiters will work with you to get all the documents you need to make this work. So we can put there yes, because the assumption is before you'll be doing or submitting your application and all this, you will have a valid job offer. I told you we'll need the TEER. You remember the code I told you to write? Yes, so yes, this thing falls between that. So we put that there. Okay, do you have a nomination certificate from? So this is where we talk about the provincial nominee program, because if you have a nomination certificate from a province, it gives you additional 600 points. And once you get that, you have a 99% of being picked up or invited to apply for your PR. So that is what I'm shooting for. If you are following me and you are really serious on this, let's go through the PMP route. Feel free to go through any other route and we can figure it out. But for the purpose of this video, we are shooting for a PMP. Now, I will say no, just for you to understand. So let's keep those 600 points somewhere, assuming we have that. But currently, if we will just put in no to see how much you score genuinely if you want to go through the express entry direct. So let's say no here. Do you or your spouse have at least, so the assumption is you don't have any family member in Canada. So we'll say no. What is the highest education? So this is talking about whether your spouse has earned a qualification from Canada. But if you haven't earned an education experience from Canada, that is where we do the credential assessment. So if you have education from outside Canada, but you have done your transcripts evaluation, then this one you can say yes. So it's a bachelor's degree. This is also asking whether your spouse has a Canadian work experience, which is assume no. Did your spouse, so if you are coming, you can do this thing as a single person, but if you are doing with your spouse, for me, my spouse didn't write the IELT because once I got the provincial nominee selection, the 600 points was more than enough. The plan was for him to write to boost the points. But if you get the PMP selection, 600 points, nothing else matters at this point. Yeah. So, but I would stick to not applicable because I'm focusing on the PMP, because we are focusing on the PMP route for this video, I'll say not applicable. Okay, so this is the score, 349. Do you remember how much we checked? We were targeting between 700 to 800. If you remember, this is what I'm talking about. We are targeting this so that you can be picked. But look at you are getting 349. So depending on your personal situation, just put in the numbers and see where you can get to be picked. Other programs are low, like the French language. So if you can speak French, you can write their exam, and if you meet, they have the score is low, right, for that one. And let's see, they have healthcare occupation, which we can look into it because of nurses. We can look into it, but I'm more interested in the provincial nominee because, guys, it is fast and it's very easy to meet. So let's be focused, right? So now that you have an idea of your score, if you were working this with me, now that you have an idea of your score, the next thing is to look into the PMP, because obviously the PMP is the way out. Once you get selected for the PMP, 600 will be added to this, and it's going to shoot you to 949, and thereby placing you above like the minimum score we saw here. And that is the goal. I believe so far you have an idea of the little things. If you were watching the video, you will take note of the transcript evaluation, IELT requirements, and all that, the job offer, the number of experience. What we have done so far should let you know everything you will need.